She was leaning against the polished granite of our kitchen counter, a pose she had likely practiced in the mirror, radiating a serene, almost beatific calm. It was the kind of manufactured stillness one sees in yoga instructors just before they begin a guided meditation, or in cult leaders just before they ask for your bank account details. It was, in a word, terrifying. "I'm giving you two choices," she said, her voice a soft, melodic instrument, as if we were discussing vacation plans or which brand of organic coffee to buy. We were, in fact, discussing the methodical, deliberate immolation of our 12-year marriage. Her arms were folded, a gesture of relaxed authority, her chin tilted up in that way that was meant to convey enlightened superiority. "You can either accept that I want to explore this new, profound connection I've found, and we can evolve together into a more modern form of partnership," she continued, her gaze unwavering, a placid lake of self-assurance. "Or you can simply stay out of the way while I do." I stared at her, my mind struggling to process the sheer breathtaking audacity of the ultimatum. I waited for the punchline, for the flicker of a smile that would signal this was some bizarre, unfunny joke. It never came. A quiet, involuntary laugh escaped my lips, a dry, humorless, scraping sound. It wasn't funny, but it was profoundly absurd. The woman I had married, the woman with whom I had built a life, a home, a history, had just been replaced by this stranger. This hollow vessel spouting psychobabble gleaned from a curated feed of self-help podcasts and pop psychology articles. "Come again," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. She sighed, a small put-upon exhalation, the kind one reserves for a particularly slow or difficult child. "Eric, please don't make this a fight. I am trying to handle this with the utmost maturity and honesty. I am not sneaking around behind your back. I am being transparent. I am giving you the opportunity to grow with me." That was when I knew, with a chilling certainty, that this entire speech had been rehearsed. That little phrase, "grow with me," was too smooth, too perfectly polished. It wasn't a sentiment. It was a talking point, a weapon disguised as an olive branch. People in our generation, our culture, are rethinking the archaic, patriarchal structures of marriage. She went on, her hands gesturing with a gentle, persuasive grace, as if she were delivering a TED Talk in our kitchen. "Monogamy isn't a natural state for everyone, Eric. It's a social construct. You know that, right?" I didn't answer. I just leaned back in my chair at the kitchen table, a silent observer at the autopsy of my own life. I felt a strange sense of detachment, as if I were watching a scene from a particularly pretentious independent film. "I've been doing the work," she said, her voice softening as if she were drawing me into her enlightened conspiracy. "I've been talking to people, reading, listening to thought leaders, and it's helped me understand that what I'm feeling, it's not weird. It's not a betrayal. It is an expansion." There it was again, another hollow, weaponized word. Expansion. It was the kind of jargon used to sell timeshares and multi-level marketing schemes. "This isn't just a physical connection, Eric," she added, her voice now a conspiratorial whisper, as if she were sharing a sacred secret. "He and we connect on an intellectual, emotional, and spiritual plane. He sees the woman I am becoming in a way that well, and this isn't a criticism of you. It's just a statement of fact. I have grown, and I refuse to shrink myself back down to fit into the small, confining box of who we used to be." She still hadn't used his name, but I knew exactly who she meant. Her boss, Jonah, 42 years old, the charismatic founder and CEO of a minimalist tech firm called Evolve, a name that now seemed like a cruel joke. Their office had exposed brick walls, beer on tap, and a mandatory daily meditation session. He was the kind of guy who wore sustainable, ethically sourced sneakers, drank mushroom coffee, and called everyone from the janitor to his board members brother. I'd met him once, at a company launch party. He had a handshake that felt like a spiritual transaction and a beatific smile you'd normally reserve for someone who had just donated a kidney. He makes me feel awakened, she breathed, her eyes shining with the fervor of a true believer. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't an impulse. This wasn't a fleeting dalliance. This was a fantasy she had been carefully, meticulously curating for weeks, perhaps months. Every word of this speech was a premeditated brushstroke in a masterpiece of self-justification, a grand, sweeping narrative that painted her as a brave pioneer of emotional evolution and me as the stagnant, unenlightened, and ultimately disposable past she was bravely leaving behind. She wasn't just having an affair. She was embarking on a heroic journey of self-discovery. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I didn't throw my glass against the wall in a fit of impotent rage. I just stood up from the table, my movements slow and deliberate, and walked out of the kitchen. I went into the master bathroom, a space we had designed together, and locked the door behind me. I stared at my own reflection in the mirror. My face wasn't angry. It wasn't even hurt. It was focused. Something had shifted deep in the bedrock of my soul. A circuit breaker had flipped, plunging the old world into darkness and illuminating a new, colder, and much clearer path forward. I was not going to give her the dramatic, emotional confrontation she craved. That would only validate her narrative, casting me as the reactionary, wounded husband. She thought this was a negotiation between two equal parties, a modern, civilized discussion about redefining terms. She had no idea that I had just unilaterally canceled the contract. She came to bed that night as if nothing had happened, as if she had merely informed me of a change in our dinner plans for the following week. She even reached for my hand across the expanse of the king-sized bed, a gesture of lingering, thoughtless habit. I didn't pull away. I let her hold it. I needed her to believe she still had power. I needed her to think I was the classic, passive, domesticated husband she had described to her lover. Too stunned to act, too comfortable to walk away, too weak to fight. She was so wrong. The man lying beside her was a stranger. He was a strategist, and he was already planning his first move. Over the next few days, she began my re-education in earnest. It was a relentless, almost comical assault of curated content. She would leave articles on my nightstand with titles like Ethical Non-Monogamy, A Guide for the Modern Couple. She would send me links to podcasts featuring conscious uncoupling experts and relationship gurus who spoke in a dizzying dialect of therapeutic jargon. Sexual autonomy, patriarchal prisons, energetic synergy, holding space. If you truly love me, you'll want me to be happy and fulfilled, she'd say. Her tone, one of patient, gentle instruction, as if explaining a complex concept to a child. This doesn't have to be a loss for you, Eric. It can be an upgrade for both of us, a chance for you to find your own path to expansion. I played my part to perfection. I nodded thoughtfully. I feigned contemplative sighs. I would pick up the articles she left, scan them with a look of pained concentration, and say things like, I'll have to think about this some more. It's a lot to process. All the while, I was watching, listening, gathering data. The most crucial and most arrogant part of her new strategy was her radical honesty. She wasn't sneaking around anymore. In her enlightened mind, she was doing nothing wrong. She wasn't cheating. She was expanding. And I was just the old, outdated piece of furniture she hadn't quite gotten around to hauling out of the house yet. She thought I was slowly, reluctantly, coming around to her point of view. That's what made it so easy. The more agreeable and passive I seemed, the more confident and careless she became. In reality, while she was in the shower, humming to one of her awakening playlists, I was installing a sophisticated piece of surveillance software on our shared home computer. It wasn't about jealousy. I was past that. It was about obtaining the unvarnished, uncurated truth. I needed to see the real script, not just the lines she was performing for my benefit. And what I saw made my blood run cold, with a quiet, methodical fury. Her boss, Jonah, was saved in her contacts as my becoming. She was wife 2.0 in his. Their private chats, conducted over a secure messaging app, were a nauseating, self-congratulatory mix of smug superiority and pseudo-intellectual drivel. He's actually softening. I laid out the two choices for him. He's in the processing phase now. I told him I needed space for a personal retreat next weekend to integrate my new truths. He actually said he understood. Can you believe it? Jonah, the domesticated man, is a creature of habit, my love. As long as his fundamental routine isn't disrupted, he will remain placid. He is the shoreline. You are the ocean. You are a goddess, breaking your own chains next weekend. I checked her online calendar, which she now left open on the desktop with a kind of arrogant transparency. A booking for 2 nights at a secluded high-end place called RKM Guest House. Underneath the booking, a note, clearly for herself. Temporary stay until things shift. Phase 1. It hit me with the force of a physical blow. She wasn't just planning an affair. She was executing a multi-phase plan for her exit. This was a trial run of her new life. A slow, seamless fade from my bed to his, without the messy inconvenience of a confrontation, a divorce lawyer, or any accountability. She wanted to have it all: the financial security of our home and the ego-stroking thrill of her expansion. She was going to try on her new life like a couture dress. And if it didn't fit perfectly, she'd simply return to the comfortable, familiar one she'd left hanging in the closet. She made her move to Phase 1 the following Thursday. Jonah and the creative team are doing a short-term off-site project this weekend. She announced casually as we sat on the couch, pretending to watch a movie. An immersive retreat to brainstorm the new branding strategy. It's mandatory. She even managed a small conspiratorial wink. You know how these startups are. All hands on deck, and sometimes hands off. I pretended to laugh along with her, a hollow sound in the quiet room. Sounds cool. Do you need any help packing? The surprise on her face was fleeting, but real. Then she smiled, a genuine, relieved smile that reached her eyes for the first time in days. Actually, yeah, that would be great. I helped her fold her clothes, watching with a chilling, clinical detachment as she selected outfits that were clearly not intended for a corporate strategy session. As she packed a bottle of her favorite expensive perfume, she paused, as if waiting for me to make a bitter or accusatory comment. "You'll kill it," I said, my voice infused with a warmth I didn't feel. "Go show them what true expansion looks like." She kissed my cheek, a quick, dry peck. "That means a lot, Eric. Thank you for being so understanding." She genuinely, truly believed I was proud of her. She thought I was her biggest fan, cheering her on from the shoreline as she sailed away to her new world. That night, after she left, I opened my laptop. I had everything. The texts, the guest house itinerary, the financial record showing she had used our joint credit card to book the retreat, and something else, something far more devastating. I had captured snippets of her phone calls, which the software had automatically recorded when the computer's microphone was active. One voice was instantly recognizable, but completely, sickeningly unexpected. Jamie, her best friend since college. "Are you sure he bought the retreat story? He's not that stupid." My wife. "Totally. He's in his processing phase. He's so predictable. God, I feel like I'm finally living for ME. You know? You are. And Jonah is completely, utterly obsessed with you, by the way. My wife. Oh, I know. You would know, right?" A throaty, conspiratorial laugh. "Hey, we all have to expand in our own directions. There's enough enlightened energy to go around." I sat there, staring at the audio waveform on the screen, the sound of their shared laughter echoing in my headphones. Her best friend, the woman who had been our maid of honor, the woman who had sat at our dinner table 100 times, drinking our wine, laughing at my jokes. She was sleeping with him too. This wasn't a simple, sordid affair. It was a sick, twisted ecosystem of narcissism and betrayal, all cloaked in the sanctimonious, impenetrable language of self-help and spiritual growth. I didn't rage. I didn't drink. I backed up every file to a secure, encrypted cloud server. I organized the evidence into a meticulous, time-stamped, and utterly damning dossier. And then I composed a short, polite, and surgically precise email. The recipient was the one person in this sordid drama who actually mattered. The only other sane person in the room, Jonah's wife. I didn't attach the files. Not yet. That would be my next move. For now, I simply introduced myself, mentioned a few overlapping dates of our spouses' business trips and creative retreats, and let her know that I had some information that she might find illuminating regarding her husband's philosophy of expansion. Then I clicked send, shut the laptop, and went to bed. I slept better that night than I had in months. The trap was set, the bait was taken. All that was left was to wait for the snap. By Friday morning, her side of the closet looked neater, curated. It was the look of a space being slowly, deliberately vacated. Before she'd left for her retreat, she'd placed a post-it note on the bathroom mirror, written in her elegant, looping script. Gone for a few days to find my truth. Don't stress. I love you. Just differently now. Carefully weaponized language. Not infidelity. Just a different kind of love. Not abandonment. Just a personal journey. She thought she was balancing between two safe, viable options. She had no idea that option 3, the one she hadn't offered, the one she couldn't even conceive of, was already in motion. My first step was practical, not punitive. I took 3 large moving boxes from the garage and, with a black marker, labeled them closet, desk, books. I carefully, almost tenderly, packed her belongings. Nothing was broken, nothing was thrown away. I was simply clarifying the reality of the situation. Her mail was sorted into a neat pile on the hall table. Her favorite coffee mug was washed, dried, and wrapped in tissue paper. The wedding photos, the ones that lined our hallway, were taken down, and the frames were placed gently in a folder. I was erasing her from the narrative of our home, one artifact at a time. Meanwhile, Jonah's wife, a woman named Catherine, responded to my email. Her reply was short and devoid of the emotion I had expected. It was cold, hard, and strategic. Thank you for reaching out. You are not the first. I would like to talk. Call me. We spoke on the phone that night. There were no tears, no emotional outbursts. It was a calm, dispassionate conversation between two strangers, united by a common, profound betrayal. It turned out she was a corporate litigator, and she had been documenting her husband's affairs for years, methodically building an ironclad case for a divorce that would leave him with nothing but his enlightened philosophy. She had the financial records, the private investigators' reports, the testimony of former employees. What she lacked were the names, the dates, and the concrete, undeniable proof of his current transgressions. I gave her everything. I emailed her the entire, unredacted dossier. He's been using the expansion and evolution line for years, she said, her voice laced with a weary, razor-sharp cynicism. He and his little cult of employees. They think they're spiritual pioneers. They're just high-functioning narcissists with a venture capital-funded playground. She asked me one question before we hung up, the only question that mattered. What's your endgame, Eric? Do you want to try to save it? I thought for a long moment, the answer crystallizing in my mind with absolute certainty. No, I said. The truth, solid and clear. I want her to have to choose. I want her to come back to what she thinks is her safe, predictable harbor, only to find that the harbor has been decommissioned, the lighthouse is dark, and her ship has nowhere to dock. Catherine was silent for a moment. Then she said, a hint of admiration in her voice, I can help with that. The guest house they're at? The RKM? My family's holding company owns it. They're about to have a very interesting checkout experience. The night before she was due to return, I stood by the large picture window in our living room, watching the suburban night settle into its quiet, predictable rhythm. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel broken. I felt clear. I knew exactly what I had to do. The charade was over. All that remained was for her to walk back onto the stage and discover that the set had been struck, the audience had gone home, and her co-star had left the theater for good. She walked in just after 9 on Sunday night, rolling her expensive suitcase behind her, a picture of breezy bohemian confidence. She had the artificial stillness of someone who has just committed a profound betrayal, but has successfully reframed it in their mind as an act of profound and therefore forgivable self-love. I heard the front door open from my study upstairs. I didn't rush down. I let her marinate in the new atmosphere of the house for a full 5 minutes. I wanted her to feel the silence, to see the empty spaces on the walls where our life together used to hang, to sense the subtle but profound shift in the very energy of the home she thought she owned. "Babe," she called out, her tone still so casual, so utterly arrogantly oblivious. When I finally came downstairs and stood at the bottom of the staircase, she gave me a half smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm home," she announced, as if returning from a simple trip to the grocery store. I looked at her for a long, silent moment before replying, my voice calm and even. "No," I said. "You're visiting." Her smile faltered, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. "What?" I nodded my head towards the 3 neatly labeled moving boxes stacked by the front door. "You'll find most of your essential belongings in there. I tried to be thorough. I kept your expensive heels and your second chance journal separate, just in case you wanted to expand somewhere else." Her face cycled through a rapid series of emotions. Confusion, then annoyance, then the first, dawning flicker of genuine fear. "What is this, Eric? Is this some kind of passive-aggressive tantrum because I took a weekend for myself?" "No," I said, my voice as flat and hard as slate. "This is a clarification. You said you were processing. I've been processing too. And now, I'm done." She crossed her arms, an automatic, reflexive attempt to reclaim the posture of power she had held in the kitchen just days before. It didn't work. The ground had irrevocably shifted beneath her. "Eric," she said, her voice lowering, trying to soothe the irrational child she thought I was. "I thought we were working through this. I thought you were starting to understand what I needed." "You don't get to reframe this as a shared journey," I said, my voice sharp as broken glass. "You left to sleep with your boss and told me it was evolution. You lied about where you were going. You lied about who you were with. That is not growth, Sarah. That is a meticulously planned cover-up." Her jaw tightened. "I wasn't dishonest about everything. You called it a creative retreat. I helped you pack lingerie for your strategy team. Don't insult my intelligence." Her voice rose, a note of hysteria creeping in. "You could have told me you were uncomfortable. We could have talked about it." "I didn't need to," I snapped back, my own control finally beginning to fray. "You already knew. You just didn't care. Your desire for expansion was more important than my feelings, our vows, or our 12-year marriage." That hit its mark. She looked away, her chest rising and falling rapidly as she struggled for composure. "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered, a pathetic, last-ditch attempt at absolution. "But you did, repeatedly, and not just with him." She froze, her eyes snapping back to mine. "That was my cue. You really think you were the only one he was expanding with? I asked, my voice dripping with a cold, theatrical pity. You think I wouldn't find out about Jamie? About the little evolved ecosystem of interchangeable partners he's running at his company? Her eyes widened, a storm of shock and disbelief gathering within them. What? No, she wouldn't. She's my best friend. She told you what you needed to hear so you would continue to be useful to her, I said, pressing my advantage, enjoying the slow, delicious cruelty of the moment. She played you, Sarah, just like you were playing me. You thought you were co-authoring some enlightened new manifesto on relationships. In reality, you were just a footnote in a chapter of his much longer book of narcissistic conquests. And Jamie? She was the editor and a contributing author. That broke her. She physically stumbled back, sinking onto the arm of the sofa as if her legs could no longer support the weight of her own self-delusion. No, she breathed, shaking her head. And you know the funniest part? I added, delivering the final, devastating, and most satisfying blow. Your little love nest, the RKM guest house? It's owned by a holding company. A holding company that belongs to Catherine's family, Jonah's wife. Her head shot up, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated, and beautiful horror. She knows, Sarah, I said flatly, my voice a dead thing. She knows everything. She has the check-in logs. She has the security footage from the hallway. She has your texts. She has the names of the other women. You weren't a spiritual pioneer on a brave journey of self-discovery. You were just Exhibit A in a high-stakes divorce proceeding. For the first time since this whole sordid affair began, she had no reply, no polished therapeutic jargon, no self-justifying monologue, just open-mouthed, soul-shattering silence. I let her sit in it for a long, satisfying moment. Then, I walked to the front door and opened it wide, letting the cold night air rush in and cleanse the space of her presence. You wanted to give me choices, I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. Here's one for you. The boxes, or the life you so carelessly blew up. You can't have both. A week later, I received an invitation from her sister for a family conversation at her parents' house. It was the summons I had been expecting, the final act in their family drama. I arrived to find the entire family assembled in the perfectly appointed living room, a grim-faced tribunal ready to pass judgment. Her father, a man I had once respected, spoke first. We just want to understand, Eric. From what Sarah has told us, you ambushed her. You kicked her out of her own home without any warning or discussion. I didn't react. I simply pulled out my phone and placed it on the coffee table. I played them a single 30-second audio clip, the call between Sarah and Jamie, the one where they laughed about how predictable I was, how I'd bought the retreat story, how I was a domesticated man. The room went silent. She didn't make a mistake, I said, my voice quiet but firm as I turned the phone off. She made a calculated plan. She gambled on my loyalty and my silence. She lost. I stood up to leave. You wanted to understand. Now you do. As I reached the door, her sister, her face pale, called after me. Eric, you really loved her, didn't you? I paused, my hand on the doorknob. I did, I said, turning back to look at my wife, who sat weeping silently on the sofa, a queen without a kingdom. But she gave me two options, to share her with her boss, or to be shared by her boss and her best friend. I chose a third option. I chose myself. And with that, I walked out, not just from the room, but from the entire toxic and utterly bankrupt narrative of our life together.